Sausage.
Hello everyone, this is Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Marc, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Pumpkin Jack, an action platformer where you fight your way through 6 spooky areas by off into any and every pumpkin you could find. As a man of royalty once said, if you're looking for somewhere to go, girl, I'll take you to a movie show sitting in the back and I'll you off. Oh my god, I forgot I put all of this in this script. I'm not taking any of this out. Pumpkin Jack originally off on October 23rd, 2020 for PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. And despite my decision to start this episode off with crude and juvenile humor, Pumpkin Jack is actually rather charming, wholesome, and kind of wonderful. My god, what is wrong with me? This is what happens when you write a script and then you record it significantly later. I do not remember any of this. I'm a terrible person. Anywho, Pumpkin Jack is a game I played an early build of back in late 2019, and that alone was enough to get me excited to eventually play the finished product. When the game released in October of 2020, played a few levels, had a good time, and got preoccupied elsewhere. Fast forward however many months later, and I've finally returned to the world of Jack, replaying the 2 levels I originally beat, as well as the following 4 in what was a few sessions of afternoon delight, cause my motto's always been, when it's right, and Pumpkin Jack was the right game at the right time. Oh my god, this is a terrible script. Now, there isn't anything particularly special about Pumpkin Jack, at least in terms of gameplay and level design, but it's a well-crafted experience and overflowing with charm, a charm that kept me wanting to play more and more. Admittedly, some of its charms may not work for you, but I absolutely loved every bit of it, from the cheeky humor to its delightful and thematic soundtrack, and my favorite, the ability to find a gramophone in every level, which leads to Jack doing a little jig, and it's ridiculous, wonderful, and I love it. The only thing I dislike about Jack's dancing is that, unless I'm mistaken, there's no way to experience the glory of his dances after you've seen them the first time. Even if you replay a level, if you've already found a gramophone, it won't be there anymore, and that makes me sad. I hope this is just a mistake and that the developer sees this and says, What's this? There's something very wrong. Speaking of law school, a reference to an earlier reference that I have since edited out, but I'm keeping the second reference and explaining said reference because reference, Pumpkin Jack doesn't always abide by the laws of physics because he can, with the right weapon equipped, float. Not crazy floating or anything, but just let's make him look a little different while moving when using this weapon or that weapon while not changing his functionality whatsoever floating. It's little touches like that that I appreciate, especially when so much of the game was made by one person, Nicholas Mezzanier, a name I'm most certainly pronouncing incorrectly, and I couldn't help but have a smile on my face the entire time I was playing. Back to the weapons, whether float-inducing or not, when all is said and done, you'll have 6 weapons to choose from, all of which suit different playstyles and have their own strengths and weaknesses, from your basic shovel that's just an all-around great head basher to a shotgun that's expectedly great for taking out enemies at a distance to an orb of death that just feels cool to use. I was rather partial to the phantom blades, which were both fast and had a great area of effect attack that could cut through a group of enemies like they were nothing. In addition to your small arsenal of weapons, you also have a little crow buddy with you who can attack and stun enemies from a distance, something that comes in handy more often than you might think, and is required during on-rail sequences, which I'll get to shortly. Regardless of what weapon you prefer, they all feel great to use, and it's nice having so many weapons to choose from since combat is such a big part of the game. Pumpkin Jack is very much so an action platformer, with equal parts action and platforming. Levels can range anywhere from 20 to 50 minutes your first time through, and every level has some kind of on-rail sequence, maybe 2, like riding a minecart on a busted track, riding a horse through the crowded skies, or something of a similar sort, where the name of the game is avoiding obstacles through timely jumping and the like. Also, every on-rail sequence is accompanied by great music that elevates them from the generic, I've done this before, to, hey, I'm kind of into this. Not to be outdone by all the railing, every level also ends with a boss fight. For the most part, the game is easy and, as far as 3D platformers go, pretty responsive, but the boss fights can be a little challenging. Every boss fight follows the same formula of avoid, attack when weakened, avoid, and so on until you've followed said formula for 3 rounds to victory. That said, despite their similar foundations, every boss is unique and provides fun and interesting scenarios that ask a bit more of you than the rest of the game. And to speak to the responsiveness of the platforming, what I really mean, besides Jack jumping when I expect him to jump and the like, is that as far as 3D platformers go, I found it incredibly easy to know where I was in the world, something that's especially useful and important when jumping from small platform to small platform, where being even a smidgen off would lead to one's untimely death. Not that a pumpkin can die or anything, and on that note, the checkpointing system is pretty forgiving, and that's always appreciated in a game where accidental deaths can happen more than usual. I also greatly appreciate that you can quit a level and return to where your last checkpoint was if you don't have the time to go through an entire level in one sitting, which is especially useful during the few longer levels. Pumpkin Jack is just a delightful little game that doesn't overstay its welcome and utilizes its spooky theme well, creating a game that the whole family can enjoy. As someone who hates Halloween, because we all know I hate everything, I loved all of the Halloweenness of Pumpkin Jack and could see it being a regular October game given how short and charming it is, just like another Jack Black. And to quote Mr. Black, "You know what? You don't have to worry about me because I'm tough. If a kid gets out of line, I got no problem smacking him in the head." Anyway, that will do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Marc. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PXSausage. The site is, of course, pixelatedsausage.com, where you can find this podcast, the Pixelated Sausage Podcast, and Unamazingly Baka, all of which are available on podcast services across the globe. You can also check out the video version of this show over at youtube.com/pixelatedsausage. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, all that jazz. Hit that bell, baby. Do it if you want to. Well, you don't have to, it's okay. But it would be greatly appreciated if you did that. If you'd like to check out the art I make, you can go back to the site, pixelatedsausage.com, and if you see something you like, you can purchase a print of the piece you fancy. And if you fancy the site in general and anything that we do, please go over to patreon.com/pxs and support us that way. As always, thank you for watching or listening, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.